great having you here.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, do you have cartels? Thank you. Gracias. Yeah, the small one would be better. Better for the ears. Nice of you. Deities look so happy.
Yeah.
Deity worship here is always very nice.
Especially when Lodging.
Right. You are all very fortunate to be here. Okay, and the microphone is behind me, so I can figure this one out myself.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kumaruba Kunda Bihari Jaya Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paramahansa also Teta Satashi Srimad, His Divine Grace Avaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Jai Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur Jai Prem Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Sayan Kund Radhakunda Giri Gauradan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Jai Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shivani Glasadevi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari All glory is the assembled glory is the assembled all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Alrighty. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 6, text 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vacha Vacham Vamer Mukam Kshetram Chandasam Sapta Vatavaha Kavyam Ritanana Ivan Sarva Rasasya Chat Brahmavacha Vacham Vanermukam Kshetrahu Shandasam Saptadattavaha Kavya Kavyam Ritanana Jiva Sarva Rasasya Ramo Vacha Vacham Vanermukam Kshetrahu Chandasam Saptadattavaha Kavya Kavyam Ritanana Viva Sarva Rasasya Namo Vacha Vacham Vanermukam Kshetrahu Chandasam Saptadattavaha Yakavyam Ritanana Jiva Sarva Rasasya
Brahmavacha Vacham Vanermukam Kshetram Chandasam Saptadattavaha Kvavyam Ritananam Jiva Sarva Rasasya
Kshetram
Vachamane Mukham Kshetram
Chandrasam Saptadavataha
Chandasam Saptadavataha
Havyakayam Amritaman Jivam Savarasasya Cha
Jiva Sarvasasya Brahmavacha Vachamane Mukham Kshetram Chandasam Saptadavataha Brahmavacha Vachamane Mukham Kshetram Chandasam Saptadavataha Havyakayam Jiva Sarvasasya Cha Brahmavacha Vachamane Mukham Kshetram Chandasam Saptadavataha Havyakayam Jiva Sarvasasya Cha Brahmavacha Vachamane Mukham Kshetram Chandasam Saptadavataha Havyakayam Jiva Sarvasasya Cha.
Oh, that's very good. Kelsey was doing that too. Wow. Okay, you want to know? All right. Okay. Brahma Uvacha. Lord Brahma said. Vacham. Of the voice. Lanahe. Of fire. Mukham. The mouth. Kshetram. The generating center. Chandasam. Of the Vedic hymns. Such as Gayatri. Sapta. 7. Gatavaha. Skin and 6 other layers. Havyakavya. Offerings for the demigods and the forefathers. Amrita. Food for human beings. Ananam. Of all sorts of foodstuffs. Yuvam. Tongue. Sarva. All. Rasasya. Of all delicacies. Cha. Also. Translation. Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people. And you can repeat. Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns. And his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs
of different foodstuffs,
and delicacies for offering
and delicacies for offering
to the demigods,
to the
the
demigods,
forefathers,
the forefathers,
and the general masses.
and the general masses.
So purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
The opulences of the universal form of the Lord are described herein. It is said that His mouth is the generating center of all kinds of voices, and its controlling deity is the fire demigod. And His skin, and other 6 layers of bodily construction are the representative generating centers of the 7 kinds of Vedic hymns, like the Gayatri. Gayatri is the beginning of all Vedic mantras, and it is explained in the first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. Since the generating centers are the different parts of the universal form of the Lord, and since the form of the Lord is transcendental to material creation, it is to be understood that the voice, the tongue, the skin, etc. suggest that the Lord in His transcendental form is not without them. The material voice, or the energy of taking in foodstuff, is generated originally from the Lord in such actions, but perverted reflections of the original reservoirs. The transcendental situation is not the transcendental situation is not without spiritual variegatedness. In the spiritual world, all the perverted forms of material variegatedness are fully represented in their original spiritual identity. The only difference is that material activities are contaminated by the 3 modes of material nature, whereas the potencies in the spiritual world are all pure because they are engaged in the unalloyed transcendental loving service of the Lord. In the spiritual world, the Lord is the sublime enjoyer of everything, and the living entities there are all engaged in its transcendental loving service without any contamination of the modes of material nature. The activities in the spiritual world are without any of the inebrities of the material world, but there is no question of impersonal voidness on the spiritual platform, as suggested by the impersonalists. Devotional service is defined in the Narada Pancharatra as follows. Sarvo padi viniruptam tatvaratvaina dyumalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhaktiya uchate. Originally, since all the senses are produced of the Lord's reservoir senses, the sensual activities of the material world are to be purified by the process of devotional service, and thus the perfection of life can be attained simply by purifying the present position of our material activities. And the purifying process begins with the stage of being liberated from the conception of different designations. Every living entity is engaged in some sort of service, either for the self, or for the family, or for the society, country, etc., but unfortunately all such services are rendered due to material attachment. The attachments of the material affinity may be simply changed to the service of the Lord, and thus the treatment of being freed from material attachment begins automatically. The process of liberation is therefore easier through devotional service than by any other methods. For in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 12th chapter, text 5, it is said that one is subjected to various kinds of tribulations if one is impersonally attached. Klesho dikaptaras desham ayakta sapta chetasam. So again, the verse. Brahmavacha vacham vami mukam chitram chandasam saptadatta vaha bhavya kavya matana jivasarva vasasya cha. So Om Gana Timiranda Shah Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmeritam Yeda, says Maharaj Shri Guruvaya Namaha. So, of course, we're hearing in this particular chapter the Virat Purusha being described. So one may question, why do we need to hear about the Virat Purusha? Let's hear about some, sexy pastimes of the Lord, like in the gopis, or these Ramchandra's pastimes, or Lord Nrsimhadev, what's this Virat Purusha thing? And there's a reason for this. Like everything in the Bhagavatam has a reason. There's a reason why it's in a particular canto, in a particular chapter. And we do understand that when you read the Bhagavatam, you're supposed to start with the first canto, going up to the smiling face of the Lord, which is the 10th canto of the Lord, and then you continue. And by the time you're finished with the first 9 cantos, hopefully you're free of Sarvapadi Vinir Muktam Tat Padapwena Yungalam Rishikina Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Vichate. Hopefully you've come to the point of understanding you're not any of these designations before you read the 10th canto. And you're at least in your mind, you're patrolling your senses, Vacho Vega, Manasakura Vega, and then you're ready to hear the 10th canto. So there's a progressive path in reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. But what is the Srimad Bhagavatam exactly? I understand it's the literary incarnation of the Lord, but where does it fit in with all the other Vedic literatures? And this will help us understand why the Purusha Sukta is being described, or the universal form is being described. Well, let's go back to the 4 Vedas, Yajur, Veda, Gatara, Sama. And these Vedas are quite interesting. For example, Yajur Veda is the Veda for sacrifices, Swaha, Swaha, etc. And the Sama is, musical stuff. Atharva is actually like different weapons if you want to learn how to fire Brahmastra. Then you can study and curses too. So anybody who wants to learn how to curse or fire Brahmastra, kill your enemy or something like that, if you don't happen to like a particular devotee, then you should study the Atharva Veda. Of course, you have to be initiated into the Atharva Veda, and I don't know any gurus who will initiate you, so the mantras won't work for you. And then, of course, the Rig Veda is the Rig Veda of the hymns, basically. And ultimately, it's interesting, in the Rig Veda, you actually have the statement, even though most of the verses in the Rig Veda are quite confusing, because generally, if you take a poll, you'll see that most of the verses of the Rig Veda are glorification of Indra and secondarily other demigods. But there's an interesting verse in the Rig Veda, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Pada Prasantiya Suriha, which states that all the demigods, they're actually looking to Vishnu. So you actually find information in the Rig Veda about worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although it's very difficult to find, as Krishna himself states in the Gita, Trigunya Vishya Veda means Trigunya Bhavardhana. Nirdvandvo Nityasapashto, Niryogakshetma Atman. What does he say? Because the Vedas are mainly meant for people who are under the 3 modes of nature. In other words, 90% of it is just like trying to gradually elevate you, so ultimately you can come after the Bahunam Janmanamante, after many, many births, come to Krishna consciousness. Just like Prabhupada here is quoting from the 12th chapter of the Gita. The Gita is very interesting. 12th chapter of the Gita, Arjuna asks the question, which is better, the personal or impersonal, in the beginning of the 12th chapter. And then Krishna replies, after he states the personal is better, then he replies with this verse that Prabhupada quotes, Klesha Vikatavistesham Vigaptishakte Shketasam, that for those who are attached to the impersonal is very, very difficult. And then Krishna goes on to tell us what to do about life. He says, you should always think of me, and you can't do that. Then you should follow the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga, and if you can't do that, you should give up the real serve me, do some karma yoga. So Krishna is very interesting that he's giving all sorts of different levels instructions for people to gradually elevate themselves. Actually, I was listening to a class that Prabhupada was giving about 2 days ago. I was listening to the class. And Prabhupada was stating something very interesting, comparing Krishna with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we all know that Lord Chaitanya is the most munificent, right? Because we all know that verse, Namo Mahavinyaya Krishna Prema Kadayate. And it's a fact. And generally, my explanation before I heard this verse for her Prabhupada, and my explanation was correct, was that Lord Chaitanya Dinahina Yatichilo Harinamudurilo, he doesn't consider any prerequisites for someone to become Krishna conscious. Whereas Krishna has this big prerequisite, which is what, Sarvanarman, Avichajamam, Vikam Shamanam Braja. But Prabhupada presented something different. Prabhupada said, Krishna, when he presented the Gita, was thinking, people are just not going to be able to take up devotional service so quickly, so Krishna goes through a whole lot of other things like Karma Yoga and other processes in the Gita. And then Prabhupada said, but Lord Chaitanya, he just gives pure Krishna consciousness from the beginning. It's interesting, isn't it? Lord Chaitanya never advocated Karma Yoga or anything like that. He just said, Dina Hina Yatachiro, it doesn't matter, you're fallen, you're elevated. Just chant Hare Krishna and be happy and go back to Godhead. So it's very interesting. Anyway, so apart from that fact, getting back to the topic that I was attempting to talk about, was that you have the original 4 Vedas, and then you have the supplementary Vedic literatures. Of course, the original 4 Vedas do state that all the secondary or supplementary, the Smritis, are actually part of the Vedas. Because in the original 4 Vedas you have this statement, Itihasa Purananam Panchama Veda Uchate, that even the Puranas and the histories are part of the Vedas. And sometimes you'll be speaking to Vedic scholars and they'll tell you that they don't consider the Puranas part of the Vedas, but they only consider the 4 Vedas. But the 4 Vedas actually state that the Puranas are part of the Vedas. So they're sort of contradicting themselves. Anyway, so then you have the next stage of these supplementary literature in the Vedas. After the 4 Vedas, then you have the Upanishads. And the word Upanishad basically means to bring one closer, sit down and bring one closer to Krishna and the spiritual master, which is interesting. And some of the Upanishads, for those of you who may be male chauvinists, are spoken by ladies. Gargi. You have Garga Muni and Gargi anyway. And so you have lady gurus even in the Upanishads. So, hate to disappoint all you Southerners here. I'm not going to mention what party you vote for in the election and who you're supporting as president. Anyway, because I'm not allowed to do that. But anyway, so then you have the Upanishads, and the Upanishads are also quite difficult for people to understand. I remember before I joined the movement, I started to read the Upanishads. And I was just thinking, what is it all about? I mean, even I tried to read the Gita, not Prabhupada's version, another Gita, and I was thinking, it's nice poetry, but what's it all about? And Prabhupada makes it very clear. Anyway, so you have the Upanishads, which are very difficult, and the Aranyaka literatures. Aranyaka literatures are literatures written by the sages in the forest. Like the word Aranya means the forest. You understand? The jungle, basically. It means jungle for those of you from India. Or sometimes in India they pronounce jungle, jungle. Jungle. Actually, Chanakya Pandit says that if your wife doesn't speak pleasingly to you, you should go to the jungle. Aranyatena gantavyam yata aranyam yatagram. You know that word?
I haven't.
You know it? You should know that. Apriyavadana. That Apriyavadana means if your wife is not speaking pleasingly, head for the jungle.
We are already in jungle, Maharaj.
This is not jungle. Jungle means like Jharkhand forest with the tigers and the lions.
We have wild boars.
And snakes.
Snakes are all right. And thorns and also fire ants, right?
Yeah.
Yes, lots of them.
So this is jungle. So anyway, so I guess you have nowhere to go if your wife is not speaking pleasingly to you. because you're already in the jungle. So,
It's in the words.
Anyway, Chanakapanta says that. So, the Aranya literatures were spoken by sages who went to the jungle to execute austerities. And many of them went to the jungle because they were escaping from the Brahmins. Because the Brahmins, this goes a little Indian history for you, that the Brahmins in India, as they are now to a certain extent, had established a monopoly on spiritual activities, and people, in order to escape their control, they were like control freaks trying to make money. That was their purpose. They just had it, people interested in spiritual life were thinking, this ritualistic stuff is too much. Let me go to the jungle and do something spiritual. Just like you have in the Middle East. When people want to do something spiritual, they would go to the mountains or the desert, right? Like Lord Jesus Christ. They would get out of the cities and go to the jungles. And that's because religion was rather ritualistic, even in the Middle East, what to speak of in India. It got very ritualistic. Even today, I've heard that there's certain places, or a lot of places in India, where if someone's a lower caste, you can't even cross the street to go to the side of the street where the higher caste people live, unless you're going to go just clean their ditches or something like that. Just horrible. I mean, for example, we're doing a lot of work in Govardhan, and there's all sorts of like Brajavasis who are like they're considered lower caste. They don't even let them in the temples. I mean, it's shocking. And these are Brajavasis, people who are born in Braj. They're vegetarians, born in Braj, and because they're not considered high class, their family name is not so high, they just don't even let them in the temples. I mean, it's just hellish. So anyway, we have a whole program. We're going to actually start some temples there as part of our programs we're doing in Govardhan, where the people who are not allowed in the temple can have their own temple. And then we'll show the other people that these people are good devotees. They're really sweet people. Anyone's lived in Braj. The ordinary villagers who are so-called lower caste, even Bungi caste. They're just nice people. And so, it's really not so good. So, anyway, getting back to the Upanishads, the Aranyaka literatures, and then it's very hard for people to understand the Aranyaka literatures and Upanishads, so then after that you have the Vedanta Sutra, composed by Srila Vyasadeva. I mean, Srila Vyasadeva, in one sense you say he's the author of the Vedic literatures, in another sense we understand he's the one who divided. Vyas means to divide the Vedic literatures into different branches, because originally the Vedic literatures were one, and people were quite intelligent and they can understand everything. But we understand Kali Yuga, what is it? Manda Samanda Matayo. Manda Bhagya Upadratam. The people are pretty stupid, to use a common phrase. I mean, every time I read the news, I'm shocked at how stupid people are. I look at CNN and just think, oh my God, how can people be that stupid? People who are running our country, Oh my God. Like Prabhupada said that they have Gobar brains. You understand? like cow stool brains. It's like that, Manda. And they're unfortunate and short-lived and everything like that. So, Vedanta Sutra was written, but Vedanta Sutra is also very difficult to understand. It's written so that people who are intelligent can understand things. But it's written in codes, in other words, short statements, where if you're intelligent, you know what it means. Tata Brahma Jigyasa, now is the time to look for the absolute truth. If I go out in the streets of New Orleans and I say to someone, now is the time to look for the absolute truth. And they'll say, can I pull out my Google Maps? And then they say, absolute truth, where is that? And finally they find Absolute Truth Bar in the French Quarter. Anyway, I'm sure there's something like that. French Quarter. Spiritual bar. So, people don't know, Tata Brahmi Yasa, and then also the absolute truth is that from which everything comes. Huh? What the hell does that mean? So, therefore, there was necessary commentary on the Beyond Vedanta Sutra. And here, that's what I'm talking about now. We have the Bhagavatam. So the Vedanta Sutra is actually, there's different sutras or verses there, are commentaries on specific verses in the Upanishads, basically. So, or let's say you say the absolute truth is that from which everything comes. So there's a verse in the ISKCON that actually indicates that, Om Purnamada Purnamidam, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Absolute Truth, is perfect and complete, and even though He is perfect and complete, and so many perfect and complete emanations come from Him, He remains perfect and complete, right? So that's the Upanishad for you. And so that's where Jama Jasya Yataha, the absolute truth is that from which everything comes. It comes from that Upanishad. And of course, if you just read the Upanishad without Prabhupada's commentary, you won't even know what that means. Even though so many complete units come from an absolute, a complete unit, he remains perfect and complete. How does that happen? What the heck is happening here? So you have to understand the philosophy given in the Bhagavatam, which describes what it means, and it's the Lord's energies. You get into further philosophy like Parasya Shakti or Vidaya Vashiyate, Svabhavaki Jnana Balak, that the Lord has multifarious potencies, which are being described here. And these potencies do this creation. These potencies are actually first-class servants of the Supreme Personality of God, and arranging for all these different manifestations of the Lord. And then of course you also have the Upanishad verse, which is actually this verse in the Bhagavatam is also relating to that verse too. Ishavasha Medam Sarvam Yakkancha Jagatam Jagat Tenza Jena Bunjirad Magriha Kashabit Svidinam, which means everything is owned and controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And people are given their quota, but everything should be used for the Lord. And that's similar to the statement that Prabhupada quotes from the Narada Pancharatra or Sarvapati Nirmukta. One has to give up all designations and use his senses, Vishakena Rishikate, to please the Lord of the senses. And in this way one will actually be able to become nirmalam. That means free of the yogis, or free of these designations. So anyway, so this particular verse in the Bhagavatam, and this whole chapter actually, is basically dealing with the Upanishads or the Vedanta Sutras commentary on the Upanishads. And it helps us understand, what's the purpose? It helps us understand that everything's owned by Krishna, and we don't own anything. And as Prabhupada talks about here, also about how the material world's a reflection of the spiritual world, how we have to become nirmana moha jita sangha dosha. This also is the Gita. This is from the 15th chapter of the Gita. To get out of this material world is, what is it? Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha vyatmanicha vinigrita kama dvandvar vimuktar sukatuka sangyar kachanchamuda paramaviyamta. We have to become free. Nirmana means free of false prestige, also means free of the idea that we own anything. That anything, even this body is not ours. I mean, just like you see the people who are in favor of abortion, they actually say, this body is mine. I have the right to do whatever I want with it. Right? I mean, as long as I don't harm someone else, and I have a right, if I have a baby, I have the right to kill the baby because it's my body. Don't mess with my body. You hear this from the pro-abortionists. Don't mess with my body, brother. Feminazis. Anyway, so But it's not yours. Nothing is yours. I mean, this is like a shock. Nothing is mine. And that's what nirvana means. Nothing is mine. So you have nothing to be proud of. Just like you may be, I may be giving Bhagavatam class and proud. Oh, I spoke so much nicely. It's not me. Krishna says I'm the intelligence in men, right? And woman too, sorry. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm the strength of the strong, right? And intelligence of people, using a non-sexual term, intelligence of people, the strength of the strong. So it's all Krishna. It's all Krishna. I was actually watching a vegetarian film the other day, and it was showing how someone who was a vegan, he was the strongest man on earth. And he lifted 1,100 pounds. Pretty good.
Yeah.
He threw a car this way. Anyway, it was nice. Nice watching him. But apart from that, he was very proud, like that. Very proud. My strength. And of course, it's just Krishna's strength. And what is he going to do? What is he going to do when he's 80 years old? How many cars is he going to throw over? It's like in the same film, there was a picture of this gentleman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's now a vegan, actually. And there were pictures of him when he was young, with a big muscular body, with what is it called, six packs? Six-pack abs, it's called. Right?
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
6 packs. And then there's a picture of him now, and he looks like hell. So if it belonged to you, why didn't you keep it? You thought it belonged to you, it's all gone. What do they say? My get up and go went up and went. So loves to Krishna. Whatever abilities, strength, and in a second it can be taken away. Someone can have a stroke, someone can get old. Anything can happen. It's just taken away. The strength, by manasa deha geha yokishamor aprilam tuyapadi. Nanda Kishore, isn't it? My home, my body, everything is yours. So this is what's being taught here. If Krishna created, what is your claim to proprietorship? What is your claim? Maybe legally. But it's stupid to think that I own anything. And that means Krishna's time also belongs to Krishna. As Krishna says in the Gita, what kalo asmi. Time I am. The 11th chapter of the Gita. After Arjuna has been scared to death. Then time belongs to Krishna. So that's why a devotee shouldn't waste any time. Every moment is valuable. Because it belongs to Krishna. Even the time, you think you're going to while away the time watching some Bollywood movie. Watching some Hollywood movie. Or, playing some video game or doing like that. So this is really what's being taught here, that Krishna's the owner, proprietor, everything's meant for his pleasure, and therefore you have to use your senses in the service. So this is the reason this is being presented here, although sometimes devotees may think, this is quite boring, reading about the universal form. But it's not really boring, because also you understand, it makes you understand how wonderful Krishna is. I mean, we do appreciate, of course, his pastimes in Vrindavan very much. But we like everything he does. Not just one thing he does. If you love someone, let's say if you really love someone, you say, I only like it when you're in Vrindavan. Other than that, it's boring. Yeah, I don't like what you do anywhere else. It's like, wife saying to her husband, I like it when you make money for me. But outside of that, when you go bowling with the boys, I hate it. But if you really love someone, you like whatever they do. I mean, if a wife likes the husband, she'll even take his bowling trophies and put them on her shelf. If you really love someone, right? So therefore, when we read this, we should be reading this with a mood of love. That this is Krishna. He's just someone like that story that Prabhupada tells about the cobbler. I'm not going to tell the whole story. The cobbler who actually agreed that Lord Narayan could take an elephant and put him through the eye of a needle. And why did he agree that Lord Narayan could do that? Because he loved Lord Narayan. And also, he had a reason too that, Lord Narayan could put a whole tree into a seed. But it was out of love. If you love someone, and you love Krishna, and you understand his opulences, then everything he does is pleasing, even the universal form. You think, oh, that's Krishna. It's really cool what he did today, show his universal form. So, it's now that we skip the 11th chapter of the Gita when we're reading the Bhagavad Gita. It's all nectar. It's all nectar. I mean, of course, Prabhupada does comment that the middle 6 chapters are like, the cream in the cream-filled sandwich. But all the whole Bhagavad Gita, all the words of Krishna, if you love someone, every word, and of course the Bhagavatam is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, on that happy note, any questions or comments? Or arguments? Yes.
I'm not disagreeing with you. It was a very nice class. But the gopis, when they were in the rasa dance.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you saw this one coming. That they were looking for Krishna and they saw Narayan and they weren't interested. They asked him, no, where's Krishna? So and then later on when he was in the city, they didn't really care for that. They wanted the Krishna that they knew.
That's right. Basically, I'll explain that. I'll tell you a little bit about that pastime right now. Like, first of all, when Radharani came, Krishna wasn't able to keep the extra 2 hands.
Right.
They disappeared. There's a temple to that, the Chaturbahu temple in Braj. It's close to Govardhan. But anyway, the reason for that is Yogamaya. That under the influence of Yogamaya, the gopis don't know that Krishna and Vishnu are the same. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Like one time, they were angry at Krishna, and they were criticizing Krishna for his various other incarnations, like especially Lord Ram's incarnation. They said, this Supernaka, the beautiful girl, approached you. What did you do to her? You were very cruel, Krishna. You cut off her nose and ears and other parts of her body. And so, and other times, because when they saw Narayan, they offered the basis. They said, Narayan, where's Krishna? So obviously at that point it was Yogamaya. I'll relate, Rupa Goswami, something Rupa Goswami said about that in his Lalita Madhava. In the Lalita Madhava, which is a very interesting play, you have Krishna leaving Vrindavan, and primarily in Dwarka. Okay, I can tell the whole story, it's a real long story. And Radharani, in this book, Lalita Madhava, Radharani tries to leave this world. I'm not saying commit suicide, by entering into Yamuna River. And she's taken up by the sun god, Surya. You understand? And then the sun god later gives her to Satyajit to be Satyajit's daughter. Now, try to follow this whole thing. I'm not going to... It's a real complicated story. And then Satyajit's daughter is named, you remember? Satyabhama. And Satyabhama is later given to Krishna after this whole Shamantaka jewel episode in the Bhagavatam. And so, but Satyabhama doesn't want anything to do with Krishna and Dwarka because she doesn't know they're the same person. Ontologically, Satyabhama is an expansion of Radharani. I mean, all this is a wonderful story. Anyone ever read them out over here? Anyway.
Isn't it described a little bit in the 10th canto?
Yeah, a little bit of the ontology is described in the 10th canto, but Rupa Goswami goes further in this play. So if you're interested in hearing this, you just go on ISKCONDesireTrue.com and go to my narrations. And I've done the whole reading of Lita Madhava, Dutta Madhava, and there's also an app on iPhone and Android if you're interested in that and hearing it. It's a narration. So anyway, so what happens is that Satyabhama, at this point, who's Radharani? You know, the identity is there. She's not interested in Dwarkadish. She says, you know, he may be a king and have all sorts of good qualities, but I'm not interested in him. So, ultimately, to make a long story short, because it's a real long story, ultimately she does come to the realization after having some interesting interactions with Rukmini, because Rukmini is ready to send her away. She comes to the point of understanding Krishna and Dwarkadish are non-different. And then she, I guess I should tell part of the story. And then she starts having romantic relationship with Dwarkadish, who is Krishna, after she realizes. And Rukmini is opposed to the whole thing because she doesn't know what's going on. They're sneaking, even in Dwarka. Because all this is taking place in New Vrindavan, not our New Vrindavan, but the New Vrindavan, a replica of Vrindavan that's in Dwarka. And because Rukmini has gotten Krishna's promise that he won't marry anyone else without her permission. So, I mean, ultimately, it ends up well. Rukmini gives permission, and Krishna marries Satyabhama, and they live happily ever after. So the point I'm making is that Satyabhama, who is Radharani, the expansion of Radharani, didn't recognize that the king of Dwarkadish, was actually Krishna. But when she realized that, oh, okay, like that. And then, of course, then you can also I'm going to present a counter-argument to that. The whole Rath Yatra pastime, where the gopis see Krishna Dwarkadish in Kurukshetra. And they're attracted to him, but they don't want to be with him there. They want to bring him back to Vrindavan, and that's the whole Rath Yatra thing. But they're still attracted to him. They still love him, and even though at this point he's Dwarkadish. In Dwarka, he's Dwarkadish. Which is non-different from Krishna, Advaita. I mean, these things are complicated. Advaita, Chuta, Nadi, Rananta, Rupam, Adyam, Puranam, Purusham, Naviyoganam. There's one God. And he reveals himself in a variety of ways. And still they're attracted to him, but they don't want to enjoy with him there in Kurukshetra. They want to drag him back to Vrindavan. So it's a little complicated. But many times the gopis are not aware that Krishna and Vishnu are the same person. But then again, here's another part of the argument. Then again, you have someone like Jayadeva Goswami who is aware of that, and he's written in his Gita Govinda, which is the highest literature dealing with Radha Krishna conjugal loving affairs, the most intimate literature. He writes his Dasha Avatar Shloka right in the Gita Govinda. Dasha Avatar Shloka is Keshava Narahari Rupa, Keshava Shukara Rupa, Keshava Rama Sharira. So right in the middle of all these Radha Krishna pastimes, he writes about you understand? The other incarnations of Krishna, the Dasha avatars. And he's appreciating them all. In the sense that it's the same Krishna. He says, Keshava Drita Narahari Rupa. Keshava, that's Krishna with long black hair. You're now playing the part of half man, half lion. Anyway, thank you for asking the question. It just brings all these different...
Yeah, I was... but could also... another way to look at it is that the Bhagavatam is meant for souls like me who still think I can compete with Krishna. And I need to be educated on the greatness and the magnificence of his energies.
Yes.
And with the gopis, they don't have that. They have already established their complete surrender. Where I need to be educated that I can't ever be Krishna. I can't ever do that. So that's what the Bhagavatam is purifying.
Yeah, that in one sense, but the Bhagavatam is also appreciated. Lord Chaitanya would read that part of the Bhagavatam too and like it.
Yeah.
So it's not, it has that purpose, but when one is Krishna conscious, one will see Krishna in every word, in every page of the Bhagavatam.
Right.
So I think you're talking about different purposes for different people.
Right.
The same verses, the same sections here. Like Prabhupada, he loved to hear about Lord Nrsimhadev. He loved to hear, Prabhupada was the ultimate Brajavasi. And, I was just reading something. One of Prabhupada's godbrothers said that he was the greatest acharya of all time. That Krishnadas Babaji said that. I posted it on my Facebook page. Prabhupada is the greatest acharya. And yet, Prabhupada's on the highest platform of devotional service. I have no doubts about that. And yet he is relishing. I remember Prabhupada reading Krishna book, or having Krishna book read to him, and relishing things about like Shalva's airplane being shot out of the air. And Lord Nrsimhadev, seeing pastimes, Lord Rama's pastimes. So, because it's this Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa's thing, that the pure devotee, he likes everything about Krishna. And then, then you get back to the gopis, and they don't, at that point, they're not realizing that Lord Vishnu and Krishna are the same. So, you have this juxtaposition there, which is quite interesting. But, Lord Chaitanya would certainly not just read the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. In fact, his Bhagavatam was illegible because he was crying. There's that whole story that Srinivasacharya went to Jagannath Puri to hear the Bhagavatam from Swarup Damodar Goswami after Lord Chaitanya had left this world, and couldn't read it because Lord Chaitanya had been crying over the pages of the Bhagavatam. And I'm sure that included the first canto, second canto, third canto of Bhagavatam. So, and then who is on a higher platform than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna. And every word, Prabhupada said every word, if we understood one word in Bhagavatam, it would be religible.
I think it's the previous chapter or the one before that. There was a purport where Prabhupada said that reading this part of the Bhagavatam, he was quoting, I think, Vishwanath Chakravarti, is the same as being the hearing about the nectarian kissing between Radharani and Krishna.
Yeah. Because Krishna, I think. And why does Krishna create this material world? Out of compassion. We have to, one time someone asked Prabhupada, why does Krishna make such a miserable material world? Prabhupada said, you made the material world. Just like saying, why does the government make a prison house?
Yeah.
Like a criminal asking that question. You rascal! Because of you stupid idiot, it makes the prison house. So this is actually a compassionate, this material world, the creation of the material world is an act of supreme compassion. You could become Christians and just say, well, God will put you into an everlasting lake of fire, If you didn't want to serve him, buddy, burn, baby, burn, You can do that, but, but God is more compassionate than that. So here's this material world where we can imitate God. We get these, like Prabhupada says in the purport here, these reflections of spiritual senses. Krishna's creating them, and we can think that, enjoying his tongue, the belly, genitals, and, everything is just nectar. I can't wait to eat this morning. Well, prasadam is nice, but anyway. The tongue, we just run after the tongue. So, anyway, I couldn't go on more. So, any other questions? Yes, Yogi.
I got two of them. Isn't Rukmini also the chief competitor of Krishna in Vrindavan?
Radharani. Chief competitor, Radha. Chandrapali. Yeah, she's an expansion of Radharani. Expansion of Radharani, she's an expansion of Chandrapali, yeah.
Yeah. My second question is the lower caste people in Vrindavan, are they considered lower than the tribal people or higher than the tribal people?
I never asked them that question. But
I guess, well, the people in Vrindavan, they were kind of...
But these are Brajavasis. They're not tribals.
Mm-hmm.
Tribals are a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But these are people who lived many generations, hundreds of years. Their family's been there in Vrindavan. They're not... See, in Braj, you have a lot of people who just came from Bengal. At least in Govardhan, it's like, and then you have the Brajavasis, the ones who have lived there practically for multi-generations. And anyway, they're just considered, because of their family, they're considered lower caste. And the Brahmanas, they're considered high caste, and they're the ones who are just the pandus who are asking you for money wherever you go. Because when they ask me for money, they say, Brahman, they say that, oh, thank you, I can take that. They said, Brahman donation. And then when I say, sannyasi, you give me a donation. They laugh. I mean, I have a very friendly relationship with everybody there, because I spend a lot of time, and I know, actually they're very kind to me. They're all very kind to me. So,
did you ever talk to the Brahmins about letting some of these people in the temple? It wouldn't be the kind of thing to talk to them about.
No, they're very, very racist. They're racist. Mm-hmm. There's so much racism in India. I mean, it's incredible. Really, really extreme racism you'll find there. It's horrible. Based on someone's family, the color of their skin, it's just like, it's horrible. I mean, I'm not going to be able to, the only way I can try to change the culture is that, if people see me making facility for them and
you have to do it.
Giving them equal respect like that. But, I mean, the Brahmins, they're all Brajavasis. It's not a criticism of any of the Brahmins, because I don't want to criticize Brajavasis, but, there's a lot of, let's say, money-making interest that's there. It's associated with Brahmin caste. You're Brahmin, so you can make money. You do sacrifices. You do the puja at the temple. I mean, it's not that everyone's like that. I mean, there's one temple, many temples, but there's one temple I go to, which is on the tail of Govardhan, which is a very nice Brahmin couple who takes care of Lord Nrsingadev there. He's one of the original deities. The deity's 5,000 years old. Installed by Brajanava, Krishna's great-grandson. And they let me do the deity worship there, which is really unique. I mean, if you go to the Radha Raman temple, they would never let me do the deity worship. They wouldn't even let their own disciples do the deity worship, unless they happen to be in this particular family. So it's real strict, nice deity worship. So you'll find many of the Brahmins there are open like that, but there is a lot of caste distinction in India in general, not only in Braj. I mean, wherever you go, you'll find that this is, and Krishna consciousness is for everyone. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he installed Haridas Thakur as his namacharya. He really blew the minds of everybody. I mean, that's really, you have to understand the scenario there in India. When you take someone born in a Muslim family, and he's the main acharya of your mission, the holy names, that's wow. Huh? And people were just completely shocked. or Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, giving Shudras and people low caste sannyas. That's why there were attempts on his life. That's how dangerous it gets. The famous story, they went to the police and said, I'll give you some money, just look the other way when we kill this guy. And they said, normally, we do this is our business, taking money, but we don't want to do that in this case, in this great saintly person. And they closed the shops in Vrindavan when they were on parikrama because there were people from lower caste. I mean, it's heavy. It's really heavy, Anyway.
Back in Nancy, you had a question.
Okay.
Just a comment about how you said that this part of the Bhagavatam, it's all nectar.
Yeah.
And this is the part of the Bhagavatam that I'm reading through now. And when I read Lord Brahma after his austerity, when he first saw Krishna, that was just so sweet, it made me cry. I don't know, I've read all the books, and the Bhagavatam is really special. And it really is all nectar.
Yeah, it's amazing. And plus, we have Prabhupada who is giving us the Bhagavatam. So all the words coming from Prabhupada's mouth are like the saffron dust particles coming from the lotus feet of the Lord. That's what's described. So it's like shuka, a parrot touches something, it gets sweeter. So Prabhupada touches something. I mean, I've experienced that too. Because I read a lot of books, but especially when I read Prabhupada's books, it's just, there's something especially nectarian in that. There's a certain sweetness. Usually at night, before I take rest, I try to read a little bit about nectar devotion, about Krishna's pastimes. There's a lot of interesting things about Krishna, the symptoms of ecstasy and Krishna's pastimes there in the nectar devotion. And it's just like there's something very, very sweet that you don't get anywhere else from Prabhupada's translations and commentaries. I think we have to end now because it's time to enjoy our senses. Taking a shot. Class. All glory is to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jai.
Jai.
Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki
Jai.